So the pregnancy is broadly divided into 3 trimesters, divided by 3 months, right? The first
Correct.
trimester, the second and the third, and you have labor and birth after that. What we don't recognize is the 4th trimester, which is the most prolonged phase of a motherhood that begins from birth and goes up to 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Surely 3 to 5 years.
Wow. Welcome to the Giggles show. Today we have with us Effath Yasmin. Thank you, Effath, for joining in. And Effath she wears many hats. So she is an expert in craniosacral therapy. She is also a lactation consultant. She is a parenting coach. She is an international award-winning author. She is also a filmmaker. And many more. So today I have her so that she can share some interesting anecdotes, and of course a parent herself. So she's going to share some interesting anecdotes from her work and bringing in science and motherhood together, that how does that roll out and play in our lives. Welcome again.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here with you.
Same here.
Yeah.
If you have been working with young mothers for so many years now, and many of them come to you when for lactation reasons. So what are the things that they come up with? What is it that the concern a mother and they reach out to you?
You know, that's an interesting question, Andrila, because it's such a universal reason for why they come. Almost, if you Google today and ask which is the most important, issue that they might have postpartum, it will be about feeding. And mothers are always in doubt of whether their milk is enough.
True.
So they would come for milk supply issues. That will be the number one reason when they walk in to the clinic.
Is it only that?
Well, we will have to start breaking this down, because when this is their understanding, because they're starting to look at their own self-worth through the aspect of the fact that this baby is completely dependent on the mother. It's probably one of the very unique circumstances a human being is in, where another human being's nutrition and life is completely dependent on another one.
That's true.
Like, you don't have any other situation where it comes in that way, right? So the mother is in self-doubt. She's constantly recalibrating to herself whether she's a good mother, whether she can do better, is her body able to produce enough milk, and if the baby is growing well. So, and then there is also the concern of the baby's growth and development by not just her, but the entire family and community around her. So that you can imagine the concern can come out in so many different formats. The pressure on her. And then she's going through this, and so she's confused. She's like, she has all of these questions that are going on, and she thinks the main reason she thinks there is a problem is because of milk supply. And then the research tells us that the body of the mother can produce milk in various different circumstances, even in emergency situation, and true milk supply isn't really a major problem. So then how do you break this down for the mother? Like, what's going on there, right? So what she doesn't understand is, often we are looking at the 3 aspects that I look at when mothers come in. One is the state of the baby, which is the nervous system of the baby.
Okay.
What's the response of the baby to the presence of the stimulus that is coming from her or his environment? Is the baby's muscle tone, heartbeat, the entire vital information that the baby is trying to give us, which is physiological for us, right? So the cues, how is the baby giving us cues of hunger, cues of need for connection? All of these things is what the mother is actually reading, and she probably doesn't have a context to what does it actually mean. And she thinks it's because the milk supply is not there. That is why she's coming in. And she's confused because she can feel it internally. But even if a baby is growing, Andrina, interestingly, she still has self-doubts. Okay? So it takes us to the other part of the spectrum that confuses us sometimes. And this is where I want to ensure to understand what is the relational field between the mother and baby. how do they respond to each other with the cues, the touch, the presence that they can bring between each other? And how do they create that coherence? Is there a coherence, or is there some disturbances that have been created in that relational field that needs to be addressed? And how do we address that?
The harmony between the mother and
the harmony between mother and baby. So it's not just nutritional.
So if the baby is out of the womb and the cord is cut,
yes,
you're saying there's still a interconnected harmony that's going on
throughout lifetime. That's how human beings are connected with each other. So we feel like many of the things that have become so much external for us, it's more about, okay, is there enough food? Is there enough, clothing? Is there enough environment that is conducive for them? Or is there enough stimulus that we can provide by either playthings and, brain stimulating activities? This is how we look at. But what we don't realize is the comforts that we provide outside isn't really the core of this relationship between two human beings. And the mother continues to be the container for that baby throughout lifetime, and primarily for the first 7 years of life. And which is why traditionally and in millennia throughout, you can see the mother becomes the primary caregiver. So if I have to outsource this activity, it's going to be only driven by nutrition, comforts. That's about it. Maximum, you can only do 3 things. You can give comfort to the baby by giving food, clothing, and perhaps some stimulus for brain development. Correct. Or presence or consciousness. Correct. But besides that, there is so much more that's occurring in the nuances of the layers between what a mother does to her baby. There is this beautiful book, I don't remember the author at this point, but it's called What the World Doesn't Know What the Mothers Do.
Okay.
Right? And then this author, she actually went into the tribal area, and she was simply observing what's going on and what mothers actually do in this entire period of infancy. So she calls this first 3 years of life as in-arm age, the phase of in-arm, which means the baby is constantly being carried, which we call the 4th gestation trimester, the 4th trimester.
Of course.
We think in pregnancy there is first trimester, the second and the third,
correct,
but there is this 4th trimester that is the most prolonged in human life than the first 3 actually, because all of the others are divided by 3 months. And when 9 months gets to an end, then you have the baby. And the 4th trimester prolongs to about 3 to 5 years. So that is so important for us to understand, the little things that the mother does. And those things that cannot be quantified. And this is where I feel like we have a disconnection, Andrila, because somewhere we feel that there is a narrative that is being sent around in the social media that tells, oh, mother's job is not paid.
Correct.
I think to even put that in that pedestal, to even talk about monetary aspect of the transactional monetary aspect of it, itself is a disservice to what mothers do. And all traditions have honored mothers.
True.
Because of what she has given to the baby. And that can never be replaced or repaid in any format, for that matter. So I think we have to honor that and support that process rather than to fragment their lives around it, because now I'm drawn towards so many other things. So when they come for breastfeeding problems, I think it's important for them to recognize that the aspects that I didn't talk about, one is relational field, the other is the physiological and structural development that the baby gets while being at the breast. So the biomechanics of action the baby does at the breast is far more than just taking the milk, because all of the cranial structures that are forming here and the airway passages that are being really formed, and the architecture of that is the mother feeding act. There is so much more depth to that, which you cannot replace by, for sometimes we can say, we can outsource it by either having pumps or, maybe having other people who can take care. But absolutely we need a village. But the village is to support the mother while we take care of the baby. No, it's not a replacement. Yeah. And the baby boom is exactly trying to target that, which we need to support her in the process of it. And sometimes in the process of well-meaning support, we sometimes cross the boundaries.
True. We've heard that it takes a village to raise a baby. And we were having this conversation of how the mother needs to be a permanent presence in the baby's life.
Yeah.
So how does one set the balance that how much a mother may I do and when do I take in help?
Yeah.
And where does, once the baby is out of the mother, where does the role end?
Yeah. There are two aspects to this, and I want to bring that understanding about it. So the pregnancy is broadly divided into 3 trimesters, divided by 3 months, right? The first
Correct.
trimester, the second and the third, and you have labor and birth after that. What we don't recognize is the 4th trimester, which is the most prolonged phase of a motherhood that begins from birth and goes up to 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Surely 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
So that's the container that she continues to be. Why? Because the first thing that we as human beings need to learn is trust.
True.
And how is trust built in relational field? And so therefore the mother becomes the primary caregiver throughout those years for her to be able to orient the child's beginning with the relationship with the world outside. Because it comes from the container of safety and trust after that allows us to then connect with the world. Therefore, she becomes the primary caregiver. So now, how do you bring the context of understanding about the village that is required for the baby and the mother? Absolutely, it's true. Because you cannot have this kind of engagement, which is so unique to humanity, that comes in the first few years of life, that kind of intense involvement in growing the child can never be done alone. We have to have the support of the family, the community, and world at large, and caregivers. When I say caregivers, I'm not just talking about the parents of the mother and the people around them. I'm also talking about people who are supporting her from other aspects, from the community, the professional community that comes in to support. All of this is required. This then gives her the resources to be the primary caregiver.
So you're trying to say that the village helps the mother.
Yes.
And not the mother and the baby's interaction or bonding.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's interesting. That's quite contrary to what we usually hear, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. So what about the feelings of a mother? When a mother is feeling, does that have any impact on the baby, whether the baby is in the womb or out of it and after the cords are cut? Does that still have an impact?
Okay. How do I build this context for you? Because it's so close to my heart about this topic that you're talking about. So one of the most deepest impacts that occurs during pregnancy, which is also why a lot of traditions give so much support around pregnancy, and they talk about caring for the mother, right? So her emotional state of mind has a huge impact on the baby because the baby is in the container of the mother. So whatever the mother is going through, the baby is taking the imprints of that. And those are physiological imprints. And when I say physiological, I mean to say they are not psychological alone. They are imprinted in the physical connective tissues of the body, which then explains to us what transgenerational trauma could be. So it is extremely important that we pay attention to that, and that's why we need that village to support that mother, so that those impacts that are occurring during pregnancy and after, like you mentioned, you asked me about after, that continues to be, because the nervous system of the mother and the baby is constantly interacting with each other. And the baby is mirroring that. So if a mom is stressed out, the baby also picks that up. Right? So it's almost like an antenna, reception that's been received by the baby. And so baby is feeling the sense of grounding or connection only through the mother's body and her interaction and relationship. So there is a constant relationship field that's going from pregnancy and post-pregnancy as well. So it has a huge impact on that. So for example, I'll give you an example of it. If a baby is going through reflux and digestive issues, which can be a common scenario that you see, right? What we don't, and so clinically we would say, okay, baby could have a colic, maybe some digestive issues because baby's digestion is not really fully developed. Correct. Or a nervous system is not fully developed. We can give all of these examples, but there are also deeper understandings of it. So the first question I would ask a mother is, what is it that you cannot digest in life in the scenario that you are in? And often we forget that the mother that she has become is a transition from being a woman to a mother. That's why we call her a new mother.
True.
So it's a new identity that she is adopting.
The mother
and
is
she's
born.
Becoming that. She's born with the baby, right?
Yes.
So therefore, it is a huge transition for her as well. Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, she's becoming a different human being. Evolved human being as she moves through that phase. So therefore, all of that transitional phase of not being able to integrate it in her world, they can be a representation of that, what's happening to the baby. So it's important to realize that.
Because you always see the baby as a separate.
Yes.
Once the baby is born.
Yes.
But here we discussing, and what I learn is that it is a internal, like a continuous process of interaction.
Yes.
Despite that they're two different individuals.
Yes.
Now.
And in psychology, it's actually termed as interconnectivity between two human beings. And you see that phenomenal example between the mother and baby. Which is also the reason because, Andrila, when every parameter is okay, your baby is growing well, sleeping well, all of this is happening, still there are things that the baby is showing you as symptoms, which the mother is reading, and she feels something is not okay, and she's the only one who can read that, right? So how is that happening? It's only because we don't understand the parameter that's going on internally. What are the senses that we have that allows us to read more than what we see, touch and feel? There's so much going on there.
Effath, you work very deeply with babies and mothers and the nervous system. Many mothers complain about baby being restless, not getting sleep or prolonged feeding. What is the connection? Is there a connection?
Absolutely. So what she's reading in is basically baby's nervous system state.
Okay.
Now we have to just lean into one absolutely beautiful scientific work that's been done by Stephen Porges, which is called the polyvagal theory. Okay. So what is he proposing? He's proposing that the nervous system, which is the central nervous system in our body, has two branches. One is sympathetic nervous system and one is parasympathetic nervous system branch. So what does the sympathetic nervous system do? It activates and it lets us do things. Being awake, taking care of your activities, day-to-day routines. This is what the sympathetic nervous system does. Now what does the parasympathetic nervous system do? The second branch of it. What it does is to rest and digest. Okay. Right? So a balance between the two is a constant dance that's occurring throughout lifetime. So when there is an imbalance in that and we are either sympathetically overcharged or too into parasympathetic state, then you're going to have to see issues that mothers are complaining about. That's exactly what they are bringing out. So it's important to then bring that context to the mother and explain to her, this is what is happening.
Got it.
Right? And then she understands that it's not because she's a bad mother or she's not a good mother or she doesn't know how to take care of the baby or she's not doing enough, because these are her world questions at that point, right? So she's thinking about all of this, like, I don't know what to do, or I'm not sufficient, I'm not confident as a mother. So she's growing her autonomy, not as a woman, but as a mother. So which is why I call this a maternal autonomy, which she's growing at that point, and she's having all of these existential questions about herself. And so if you bring this into context and help her understand that, then she brings in a different perspective. It gives her a clarity. Okay, this is why it's happening. This is what is happening about the baby, right? And so often enough, then the bigger field that we need to open to understand is how does birth have a relationship with post in breastfeeding? How does the birth connect with breastfeeding? That's the relationship that we need to unfold in front of her. That's when she understands it. In the last 18 years of the work that I have done so far on Rilla, I have never seen a mother who walks in to the clinic who understands that there's any relationship between birth and breastfeeding. And so it's absolutely new to her. And this is where all the things that you're talking about in terms of restlessness, prolonged feeding, and not being able to be satisfied or need to be carried constantly. There's a constant need for contact. All of this is coming from that state. What has happened during birth, we are going to see what's going to happen in breastfeeding and after.
So what is the actual connection between this birth and breastfeeding? I mean, it's a very new, different area that you opened up.
Yes, because the caregivers, when mother's been taken care of, there is a beautiful process through pregnancy on Rilla, and we have almost romanticized it.
True.
To the point of recognizing each day what's the growth like, what's the videos looking like, what's the animation behind it, and so all of this is happening at that point. And then we are thrown into a situation almost like an emergency situation after, and surprised about the intensity of the care that needs to be provided for this baby, which is like, you just can't escape it. And many parents go through a shock of recognizing this because they are coming from this, which I call the pregnancy honeymoon sort of stage, and then they are thrown into this chaotic situation of
this little thing is
like,
there.
What's going on, right? What's going on? I'm not able to understand what's going on. That is where the context of understanding about what does birth have to do with breastfeeding and postpartum, right? The care that needs to be given at that point. So birth, if you see traditionally, it has always been cared for at home most of the time, and it continues to be in large parts of India. But having said that, what is important to know is birth is a naturally physiological process in a woman's life. And if we introduce interventions that sometimes may not be required, such as induction of labor and use of medications during labor, and then having to use instrumentations during labor, such as forceps, such as vacuum, such as cesarean sections, all of these have a physiological impact on the nervous system of both the mother and the baby.
And this you're saying when it is not medically required and they
sometimes
are done because of convenience.
Probably because there are cultural factors where people are looking for good time.
Yes.
Muhuratam.
Correct.
Sort of thing. There is a lot of pressure on the caregivers as well.
Or a particular doctor
or a particular not
so
available. And there are many aspects to it.
Yes, many aspects.
Many aspects to it. And so we can open that whole thing it will go into socio-political kind of scenarios,
Correct.
Economic scenarios,
Correct.
Right? But the point what I'm trying to make is that when there is too little help and too much help, you're going to see something that's going to become imbalanced. Right? So that impact is going to be there. So there is enough science that establishes that if we have, for example, I'm giving you an example, if we use medications during labor, such as pain reduction medications, such as epidural, right? That has a direct impact on the sucking rhythm of the baby. Now that is physiology. You can't unsee that. And then be surprised that if we have a medicalized labor and birth, why are we then surprised that breastfeeding should be a natural act after, without any help? It's never going to occur. And that's the disconnection I feel is there amongst the professional providers, birth community, including birth community. This is the link that's not there on Rilla. So everything that has been used as painless labor, for example, which is supposed to be giving some support for the mother, right?
Correct.
There is an impact of that. But does it mean that these things should not be then introduced? You might ask the question. everything has its place, Angela. There is a medical need for something.
True.
Absolutely, it is life-saving.
True.
If we didn't have these, I don't think we would have seen infant mortality reduction.
Yes, absolutely.
So we used to lose a lot of babies before.
Absolutely.
We don't see that now.
Yes.
So there is a lot of support that's come from all of these interventions as human beings that we are brought in. These are great inventions. Yet at the same time, we need to know how to balance it out. What is truthfully required for the mother? Can we be the container during the process of a physiological birth that we know that the wisdom lies in that mother on how to birth this baby? If we trust that, I think it's a matter of trust. There's a constant thread of mistrust that I see that is running through. There's not enough trust in birth. There's not enough trust in labor. There's not enough trust in breastfeeding. So WHO, which is World Health Organization, and also International Caesarean Network, awareness associations, all of them have a recommendation that medically, approximately about 13 to 15% or 10% of the, they can be cesarean sections. So that's the threshold that we're looking at. But many of the private hospitals that you see today, especially in the metro cities, you can easily go up to 60-70% of cesarean sections. Now, this is data that we have. And so we need to investigate and see why. What is going on there? So are we saying that so many mothers actually require medical support, or what else is going on there? So I think it will open up into a whole different topic, Andrila. But I think it's important for us to be aware of that and see what are our options, because it is important that we honor the choices of birth from the family. And where are they coming from? Keeping into consideration and firmly grounding and understanding that birthing is a physiological, natural process, and how can be supported. And in that support, of course, all of these things can come. They're all well-meaning, but we also need to know where to place them. That's important.
Effath, you mentioned so much about the connection between, the environment, today's environment that the mother is experiencing. What can a mother do so that she can, have a healthy birthing experience?
Yeah, such a deep question, Andrila. So much that I can think about there. One of the most important things that we need to remember is that what our goal is to see if we can actually have a safe and supported, loving birth experience.
Correct.
Why? Because it's an experience that the woman is going through that lasts a lifetime for her. There is nobody on this planet, even if they are 90 years old, can ever forget the birthing experience.
True.
It's so deep in their bodies, right? So it's registered in their body. So if we can support during the pregnancy time, such as mindfulness, bringing themselves to connect with their bodies, the mind and the body connecting during that time by various ways of approaching. One is, there's also this traditional form of Garbh Sanskar, for example. That's very beautiful approach about it, understanding about it. And also, spending time with themselves, self-care during that time, not just nutritionally, but being able to coherently relate with their own self during this time of pregnancy can really have a beautiful impact on what happens later. Why? Because the mind has a deep connection to the body, like we spoke earlier as well, and everything is stored in the body, right? So the way the body responds, Andrila, is if there is a threat or if there is anything that is occurring which is not natural, or I don't have the capacity to process it in this moment, then the tissues in the body contract.
Got it.
You see that? So it contracts. And if I'm feeling safe, then I expand, which happens to all of us. If you have a headache, you're never going to feel expanded in your head. You're going to feel constricted, for example.
And when we feel stress, our face and body muscles do feel contracted.
You feel, because that's the body's response to it, right? So if you feel the sense of fear, then you're really going in. So then the tissues in the body are also constricting, therefore reducing the container in the womb for the baby. And if it's consistently for a long period of time, where the mother's body cannot regulate it, then you're going to see those restrictions in the baby as well. later on. How? As torticollis, mild torticollis, different stages of torticollis, which is tightness in the neck, where the baby will feed on one side and will not be able to feed on the other side. So there are direct impacts of that. So birthing process is a very intense natural process. So what is occurring during birthing? You have rhythms of contractions and release. Contractions and release. So there's a natural rhythm to it. And that in the natural rhythm itself is intense.
True.
And pushing the baby out through the birth canal. And that's a beautiful resistance band, if I can say, for life, of how we are able to have resilience in life. And that is the birthing process that's occurring. So how can we support with all of the mindfulness and self-care that she can bring in to prepare her body for this intense experience that she's going to have?
Interesting.
Right? So there is so much that we can talk about the physiological aspect of it. You know, it's a whole lot that I can speak about that.
If a young mother has to take one thing, which she can implement in her day-to-day journey of motherhood from the work that you do or with the experience that you have, what is it that you would recommend?
Okay, such a beautiful question, makes me think about it. So if it has to be one, I think it's the deep wisdom that she has internally, inherently hers, which is such a blueprint and a matrix that she has internally, to be able to tap into that wisdom. And that can happen during pregnancy and birth as well, and post. How? So if we know that the birth is physiologically natural, then if she can tap into her wisdom of the body will do what it requires to do. So if all of those activities that we were just talking about, the mindfulness, helps her tune into her system.
The faith in her own
Yes, the faith in her physiology of body. There is a deep wisdom that we can connect with the body.
True.
The body wisdom, which we call it.
Correct.
The body, the wisdom of the body, So
Correct.
Connecting with that. And that helps her to know how to read non-verbal cues, because that's what she's navigating towards after birth, isn't it?
Correct.
Baby is not able to speak until long time. And perhaps we struggle even today to even express ourselves.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how is the mother reading that? It's only through her physiology, deeply connecting through non-verbal cues. And that's what she's reading in. And I think if it has to be one thing, that has to be the wisdom of the body.
So thank you, Effath. Thank you so much for joining. It was a lovely, very, very insightful conversation with Effath. I hope all of you liked it. For me, if I have to tap into the entire conversation, what came to me as that, there's a lot of knowledge that our body holds, and somehow because of the noise outside, it silences that inner knowledge that we have.
Yes.
And if we can somehow bring that out and listen to it, I think it will be a much beautiful experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you everyone. Thank you once again.
Thank you.